Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Dangerously Divine podcast. Today, I'm joined by Taylor Proctor, who owns a business called Get Good at Business. Taylor is the most badass business strategist and optimizer who empowers entrepreneurs to break barriers and achieve a next level of success. She actually has a proven track record for guiding Fortune 500 companies and multi-million-dollar enterprises. So she has the formula. It's called iMove. We're going to get all into that. And she actually manifested an 8-figure business opportunity in 2 weeks. As if you need more reasons to listen to this podcast episode, we have the best of the best here for you. Thank you so much for joining me, Taylor.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show today.
When I saw 8-figure business, I was like, my jaw fell to the floor because I see a lot of business coaches that will help you manifest 6 figures, 7 figures. I had never seen 8. And I knew I had to get you on the show. But before we get into that story, can you tell me a little bit about your beginnings, where you started, how you got into this sort of manifestation process and helping other businesses?
Absolutely. So it's interesting because intuition plays a huge part of the process. And I originally didn't think I had intuition. I was working with coaches, and not coaches for me helping them, but I was being helped by coaches. And they would say things like, "Oh, I just got full body chills. That means it's a yes." And I was like, I'm not getting any of that. They would be like, "Oh, I just feel it in my gut." And I'm like, I'm not feeling that either. And so I felt like all these people around me in business had this super secret power that I didn't have access to. And quite honestly, it pissed me off. Like, I was so mad that I was like, this is ridiculous. And I eventually found that there's actually over 60 different ways that you can receive intuition. And it's very much like a fingerprint. And it's custom to every single person. And the situations that you're in, the fingerprint strength, if you will, like you have access to all 60, but you have strengths, and it's almost like levers, right? And when you know where those levers are in that unique fingerprint-esque of your intuition, now you can move forward in anything in your life so much more effectively and much more faster. Things start to fall into place. And so I started implementing intuition and the abundance and the manifesting mindset once I figured out that my intuition is uniquely mine, not what somebody else says that it should be or could be. And once I figured that out, I was able to start listening to it more and taking the action that made opportunities like the one we get to share today start to fall into place in like rapid timelines. That being said, the little bit of the history and the background besides that is I spent over 15 years in corporate world doing marketing, operations, leadership, and strategy type of roles. And while I was doing that, I was also doing coaching on the side. So I was leading 30-person international teams, started that department from scratch. So went from 0 team members to 30, from 1 service to 5, from 1 client to 5, from 1 language to 5, to millions of dollars in revenue in a 3-year period, which is unheard of for a single department in the industry we were in, and even spent 6 weeks living in Edinburgh, Scotland, setting up our European team. So I was doing all of that and doing coaching on the side. And what I found with the coaching is I was helping my clients be happier in their life. And then they would say to me when we had finished working together, "Man, everything in my life is so much better now. If I could just get good at my business, everything would really be in place." And I was like, I literally am doing that for these corporate companies I'm working for and supporting. And so why not start to do a shift where we pull over the happiness habits and those pieces that make for a good life and also incorporate the business piece and help entrepreneurs get good at business so they can get back into the heart of why they got into business in the first place. So we do that through that methodology. You'd mentioned the iMove, which the very first part of iMove is intuition based. And like I mentioned, I didn't think I had intuition, but it turns out I do. And so does everybody else. And it's just about finding your unique fingerprint style of intuition.
Right. I'm curious, what is that intuition that you have? If it's not full body chills, do you know, like, what is the strongest one you have?
Yes. So it's funny because I'll definitely share this in our story as well. But my strongest, I have two that are very, very strong. My strongest, especially when it comes to the areas and situations around business strategy, is a sense of adventure. So imagine that you're going to go on a hike. Now, whether you love hikes or not, like put that aside for a second, right? Imagine that you're going to go on a hike. A sense of adventure is, I'm so excited. I'm putting on my thicker socks and my hiking boots. And I'm filling up my backpack with my water and my treats. And I'm hiking up the mountain and, oh, what's around this bend? And look at that view. Let's take a picture. Like, this is awesome, right? The sense of adventure towards like what's coming. I'm willing to carry the heavy backpack. I'm willing to wear the thick and uncomfortable socks for the shoes. I'm willing to stop and at the bend and be like, this is incredible. Let's keep going. Now imagine the other side of that. Gosh, I got to go on a hike today. I got to get up early. I got to wear these thick socks. And, I hate these shoes. I got to carry this heavy backpack. Why do we have to spend all day doing this? Is that bend in the trail? Like, is that the end? Can we turn around? Like, there's such a difference.
Sounds like me.
But for me, like the first example is that sense of adventure. The second is like kind of this dread, just not my vibe. Well, when you use that for intuition, especially in business strategy, it's like what strategies or what things are coming to you that you're like, ooh, yes, I have that sense of adventure. Like, let's see where this goes. Let's hike up that mountain. I know it's going to be hard work. I know it's going to take all day. I know it's probably going to be hot, but I'm totally all in. Versus when you get this idea in a business strategy or someone says you have to do it this way and you're like, oh, I got to go hike up that mountain. Do I really want to do this? And you start to like not talk yourself out of it because sometimes we're going with friends. Like, hey, my friend wants to go hiking. Let's go hike up this mountain. You're like, oh, okay, but peer pressure, I guess I'll do it. And you're hating every minute of it. That's what happens a lot in business, specifically business strategy, where someone says, do it this way and it'll be successful. And you're like, no, I don't really know, but you're going along with it. And for me, when I know that I have that sense of adventure, I know that it is an aligned decision for me. It's congruent. I can take action on it and I can hike up that mountain, if you will, and see the success at the top versus struggling to get there the entire time and wondering why in the world I'm doing this.
Right. I can think of so many examples now that you've just explained it in that way. I just made a Facebook post recently, kind of sharing my story with coaches that will sell you Facebook groups as part of their lead magnet. So I don't know that you do that. If you do, then oops. But when I was new to the coaching world, I signed up for all of these lead magnets. I was like, let me see what other people are offering, if I can get some value out of it, or if I could learn what kind of lead magnet I want. Signed up for like 100 different coaches' lead magnets. And most of them were like, advertise to 50,000 women like within these Facebook groups that are free and on it. And I was like, that sounds fantastic. Like, of course, why wouldn't I want to advertise to 50,000 women? And then I was like, I have 100 of them. So 50 times 100,000, like that, it was like, duh, why wouldn't I do this? And then I got into the Facebook groups and I was like, oh, okay. Not exactly what the coaches had sold me on. And like, I stayed in them. And this kind of gets into what we're going to talk about later. They all were posting, I made $1 million doing XYZ. Here's my
formula. Here's my approach.
10-second ChatGPT formula that generated me $1 million. And then I started feeling like so much dread, like I'm not far enough, or what are they doing that I'm not doing? And I was in a really powerful breathwork session the other week. And I just had this like intuition to just leave all of those Facebook groups. And I was like, I get it now. Those coaches are creating money blocks in their potential clients who are also coaches. And then, it's like bring you down to build you up kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that feels so nasty to me.
So out of alignment.
So I went on this whole rant about it and I left everyone. And, I, as much as I am a coach, I'm still a person. And I love taking people on that journey with me just to say like, hey, I mess up too. I fall for these things that, maybe aren't what they seem like. And, I'm here to help you avoid those pitfalls that I made once. And so, yeah, as you were explaining this whole hike, I was like, that's one of those examples that, it just didn't feel good. It didn't feel aligned, made these money blocks that I didn't have suddenly appear. And then I was dreading actually doing the work. So I think what you do is so important.
Thank you. And you really highlight something too that I see a lot happening and that I also am in complete disagreement with. And first off, you'll notice, and I love that you said this even in the intro of this, I say 8-figure business opportunity. I never have been one of those coaches like, I made 8 figures, come and do this. I'm like, no. I have a success story from one of my clients that I share regularly on podcasts and things. And I never say the amount of money that we got them in 30 days. Right. And I've had people be like, well, how much money was it? And I was like, it was what they needed. Like, I'm not going to say, because then people think, oh, you can get me that. I'm like, no, it completely depends on where you're at, where you are in your business, your blocks, all those things. But I had a client once that came to me and she said, I hired a business coach and she said that she guaranteed that she could get me $30,000 months. And I'm like, I'm looking at speaking to this client, I said, I'm looking at your audience. I'm looking at your lead gen. I'm looking at your content. I'm looking at your offers, all of these things. There is no way we could get you to $30,000 months in the time frame that person was saying they were going to get it to them in month 1. And I'm like, if you don't have the audience, you don't even have the audience. If you don't have all of those pieces. And so I see a lot of coaches out there that are making promises that they have no right to be making, first off. And then second off, in the situation you're mentioning, like, oh, here's my ChatGPT code, da-da-da-da-da. Here's the thing that I've experienced in my own life, right? 15 years in corporate and building businesses. And I'm not just an owner in my coaching business. Actually, I'm an owner in 3 other businesses that are in very different industries: manufacturing, education and tech, and healthcare. And all of that comes together for me to be able to say, let's get you good at business. But people that are saying, oh, here's my ChatGPT method that made me $8 million. Am I allowed to swear on the show?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Bullshit. It did not make you this one ChatGPT prompt made you $8 million, whatever. No, absolutely not.
That's a stretch.
That is a big stretch. And it's just something I don't believe in that, where it's like, even with over 15 years of experience, if I said this one thing resulted in this, it's like, absolutely not. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in love with my own methodology with the iMove method, because it focuses on intuition first, taking that aligned and congruent action for you as an individual, not for me as your coach, not for the money or whatever, but for what makes sense for you and your business, to then get massive momentum in your marketing that is supported by your operational processes, allowing you to scale, which gives you velocity in your business without burnout and allows you to execute with ease. And there's iMove, our intuition, our marketing, our operations, velocity, and execution. And I love that you brought up that example, not only from the intuition standpoint and that like sense of adventure is my own sense of intuition and my own intuitive strength, but also I think it's important to note that anyone who is in business, if you are like, you're seeing all of those things and it's like, you start to second guess yourself, you start to compare, you start to all of those pieces, do your damnedest to pull back and look at the actual situation and go, wait a minute, can one ChatGPT prompt really make that much money? Unlikely, very unlikely, right? And so then you're like, well, that's not a coach I want to listen to. That's not somebody I want to pay attention to because they obviously are out to do something crazy and it's out of integrity.
Right. And that's such an important piece. I love that you mentioned saying the word opportunity because I was reading that from your bio, but it actually does make sense because I get such an ick when I hear how much people make. And I'm like, if you're trying to sell that to someone who's not making that much money, then you're triggering all of their money blocks. If you say, oh, I made, 7 figures and you can too, that internally is triggering like an ego response almost. And I think that the word opportunity being there, like, is the perfect little, I don't know, like Band-Aid to that problem because you're not creating a problem in people's minds. You're just sharing your story. And I love that. And I want to get into that story.
and because the story, which we'll totally talk about, right? But because that story is very much about the intuition piece, I never want to come across as like guaranteeing someone a certain amount of money. But I can definitely share my story and the things that I did that generated an 8-figure business opportunity for me so that it can be applied for those listening in the ways that make sense for them. So it doesn't have to be an 8-figure opportunity. It can be any kind of opportunity can start coming their way.
Right. Yeah. Do people get maybe a little bit nervous when they hear all that's in iMove, because what you said sounds great. Intuition, marketing, operations, velocity. I forgot what the E meant.
Execution.
I'm like, I'm one person. That sounds like a lot.
Well, I think it's interesting too, though, because as entrepreneurs, 99% of us in that first 1 to 5 years doing it on our own. So while that is a lot, you are wearing all those hats on already.
Right.
And so it is one of those where I have found that if entrepreneurs, business owners can get good at the areas within the iMove method, everything else starts to fall into place. And so even then, like we could expand iMove beyond, and now we're talking finances, we're talking hiring, we're talking like all of these things that the iMove method, once you get good at the areas within that, everything starts to fall into place. But also business owners have it, it's like levers, right? So I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, man, and they're very good at the marketing arm. They're like, and execution. So they're excellent at marketing, they're excellent at execution. And they're like, I just don't get how not everybody's good at marketing. And I said, well, you're excellent at marketing, but your operations is where there's a lot of room for improvement. And they're like, yeah, you're really right. And I'm like, but some people, operations are really solid and they need help in marketing. I was talking to a client actually right before we hopped on the call here, and we were talking about iMove, and she's excellent at intuition and execution. And she's like, now I need to focus on getting good at my marketing and my operations, which then can support more velocity in the business. And so it all has a way of being, what I love about it is it has a way of being custom and unique, even though it's a methodology, to the individual, which sets us up to take that aligned and congruent action and puts me not in a position where I'm telling you what to do, but we are working together at me as a business coach to support the growth in your business that makes sense for you, not what I think you should do. And that makes all the difference in the world, because one of the things I love to ask is I go, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does this feel? And my favorite is my clients will go, it feels good. I'm like, great. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good does it feel? And they'll be like, oh, okay, it's like an 8. I'm like, awesome. 7 and below, we throw out the door. 8, 9, so 7, 8, and 9, we look at and go, okay, what would make it a 10? Oh, actually this word here, or I feel like this will come off this way. And it's like, okay, now we can work through some of the beliefs. Now we can work through on optimizing the copy or the process or whatever it is in this direction that now makes sense. So we adjust. What does it feel like now? It feels like a 9.5. Great. What would make it a 10? Honestly, I think just executing on it. Okay, great. So now we're going to move forward and execute on it. With that though, here's the key difference. When you have the energy of the 10 out of 10, the energy that's your energy of aligned action, that is so much more sustainable than me saying to you, hey, do this strategy and it's going to work. Because I can't guarantee that. And I think we've all been there, right? We've all listened to some expert say to us, do this and you'll get this result. And we do it to the letter. And what happens? Falls flat on its face. And that's because it wasn't aligned and congruent action. And so one of the things that I love to do is ask that question. Scale of 1 to 10, how's this feel? 7 and below, chuck it. So, well, actually below 7, chuck it. 7, 8, and 9, ask what would make it a 10, make those adjustments. And then with an energy of a 10 behind you, you actually can move forward in your business and take that action, get the massive marketing, build your massive momentum in your marketing, build your operations, get that velocity, follow your intuition, execute with ease. Like all of that starts to come into play because it has a 10 energy behind it. I guess pro tip number 1 here of the whole story that we haven't even gotten into, ask yourself how it feels on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's not a 10, 7 or below, chuck it. 7, 8, or 9, figure out how to make it a 10 so that energy is aligned for you to move forward in your business.
I love that. I'm definitely going to take that with me from this episode. I know when I first started my business a few years ago, I had such a block around Instagram because I had previously worked in social media for about 6 years. And I was like, this feels like work. It's not challenging for me to do. I know I'm good at it, but like I'm in the business of wanting something new and wanting to like start over, start fresh. I don't want to be like tethered to my old life. And I had all of these blocks around social media. And so sometimes I'll go a week without posting and that doesn't really feel like a big deal to me, but I will not go a week without podcasting. And if I do, like I will make up for it in the next week with like 2 episodes because this is new, this is exciting. It's like that sense of adventure, something I'd never done before. And I don't know if this is what you meant by like levers, but sometimes I will pull the lever of social media and I will have a challenge on my Instagram or we'll post some long rant or something if I feel like it. But most of the time that's not what I'm doing. And I think that's okay because it doesn't feel aligned in the first place. So, like you just said, if
I completely
something
agree.
doesn't feel aligned, we don't want to do it. Because it's not going to generate anything, right?
It's not going to generate anything if you're coming at it with an energy of I have to or I should, which again, that I would say that's a 7 or below. If you're like, yeah, I'm thinking about being on Instagram. Okay, how's that feel? On a scale of 1 to 10. Feels like a 6. Chuck it. That's not part of your strategy. And here's the thing, there are a million ways to make $1 million. I have a client right now, she's like, I don't like social media. I've posted for 90 days in a row before. I have no problem creating content, like all the things you consider normal blocks. And she's like, I just feel like it's disingenuous and I'm not really finding the connection that I want there. Cool. Million ways to make $1 million. Somehow we've all believed you have to be on social. You don't. And so she's going out and networking and meeting her ideal clients, and opportunities are coming out through the woodworks for her to connect with her ideal clients, to have those sales calls, to make those sales, to now have clients. And it just makes such a difference when you're taking action that's aligned with you, intuitively aligned, versus, well, everybody says I should be on Instagram. Maybe I should be there.
Right.
Well, no, the shoulds are the very first part where that's an indicator. That's probably a lower number on the 1 to 10 scale.
Right. That's fantastic. All right. Should we?
Yeah, let's
get
do
into it. All right. How did you possibly manifest an 8-figure business opportunity in 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I was not planning on 2 weeks. Like I did not set a deadline. And when it happened, I was like, wait a minute, when did I first have this happen? Holy smokes, that was in 2 weeks. So,
wow.
It happened very simultaneously. It was crazy. But what I was doing is I was doing a morning walk, and not a traditional morning walk. I just happened to pace on my back porch for like 45 minutes every morning. So I'm pacing on my back porch and it's outside and it's nice and everything. And out of nowhere, I get this thought that I can be an 8-figure entrepreneur. And I'll be real upfront here. I was like, I don't even know how much that is. Like you hear 6-figure, you even said this, right? You hear 6-figure, you hear 7-figure, you don't really hear 8-figure.
You don't hear 8.
And I was like, this tells me it was intuition, because I'm sitting there going, I don't even, how much is 8 figures? Okay, count on my fingers. 1, 2, 6 is 100,000, 7 is, okay, 8 figures is a minimum of $10 million. Like that's the baseline 8 figures, 10 million. I didn't even know that when I had this thought. It's an important thing to note there, because that's how you know it's intuition. All of a sudden you have this idea come in, you're like, I don't even know what that means. So I have this thought, I can be an 8-figure entrepreneur. Well, of course, the very first thing I start doing once I figure out the number that is, okay, well, how? How would I do that? I'd have to sell X amount of this product, and I'd have to raise my pricing here, and I'd have to work with this many clients, and da-da-da-da-da. And it starts to get overwhelming. And then I'm like, you know what? No, let's just ride this wave. I'm going to forego any expectation of how this will happen.
Right.
Just let's ride the wave. I had the thought I can be an 8-figure entrepreneur. Let's see. So that's step number 1. I foregoed all expectations around how this could happen, what it would look like, etc. So fast forward the next day, I'm pacing on my back patio and I'm like, all right, 8-figure entrepreneur. And I'm not going to have any expectations of how that's going to happen. So I just start telling myself, I create this custom declaration and I start telling myself, I am Taylor Proctor. I am an 8-figure intuitive business strategist and coach. My name is Taylor Proctor. I'm an 8-figure intuitive business strategist and coach. My name is Taylor Proctor. I'm an 8-figure intuitive business strategist. And I think about that 45 minutes straight. I'm just saying that over and over and over and over and over again, which thank goodness, because, it was just me on my back patio. I'm sure if anybody was paying attention, they'd think I was crazy. Because I also was doing it in funny voices. I was doing it while I was laughing. I was whispering it. I was yelling it. I was doing all these different ways to bring this declaration into my brain. Because if your brain...
I love it. I've never heard of that before. Just using the power of your words and
absolutely.
different voices. Oh my God, that's amazing.
So the science behind that is you have your reticular activating center or system, your RAS or RAC. Essentially, it's your reticular activating area of your brain. And that is your filters. So that filters out everything that it doesn't deem as important. And so the way to get through that filter is to see it, hear it, say it, feel it. Okay? Well, when you're saying it and hearing it, the fastest way to get through is to do something different. So when you whisper it ignites your brain in that center of your brain to be like, wait, what are we doing? I got to pay attention to that. If you're yelling it, same thing. If you're saying it in a funny accent, or if you're saying it while you're laughing, or you're saying it like a ghoul, like, I don't know, right? It gets your brain to go, wait, we got to pay attention to this. At which point, now it's into your reticular activating center, and you're going to start paying more attention, which is how you can attract more opportunities, because you're starting to pay attention to things that would align and attract that. So that's like your law of attraction in the scientific way. That being said, totally 45 minutes straight, just saying this thing over and over and over and over and over again. So I would say step number 1, forego your expectations of how this thing can happen. Step number 2 is create a custom declaration and say it to yourself every possible chance you get. In the shower, in the car, when you first wake up, like any chance that you can get. So now I'm saying this declaration back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, then I get this invitation to a conference. And I've got to be honest. I'm being honest this whole time, but I always worry that the person who hosts this conference will hear this part. So I'm always like, oh, but I got to say it anyways because it's so important. I was invited to this conference and I did not want to go. Okay. The person who invited me had invited me to probably, 6 different events over the last couple of years. And I had just always missed like the invitation until after the event had happened. And so this was one I had seen before the event happened. I kind of felt obligated, like, man, she keeps on inviting me and I never keep going. So because I keep on missing it, so I'm going to go. And I committed to going. Well, it's on a Saturday morning. And now this is about, we talked about 2 weeks. This is about day 10. So I've been saying all this stuff to myself, repeated over and over. There's a couple of other things I did that we can talk about later. But ultimately it was like, okay, forgo the expectations, do the declarations. And then this event came up. It's a Saturday morning. It's 2 hours away from where I live. So I have to get up early, get ready, drive to it. And I'm like, I don't even know what this is about. Like I just said I would go because I felt like I had to. And I love the lady. She's amazing. But I was like, I don't even know what this event is for. So I'm like, I'm going to go though. Because I had the thought, just go. Don't be lazy. Just go. Okay. So I get up early and all this stuff and I go. And I go to this event and I end up meeting this woman. It's in a little networking break. And she goes, well, how come I don't know you? And me joking, I'm like, I don't know. How come you don't know me? Right? And I'm like, I don't know. But like, it's really great to network. I don't know. How come you don't know me and I don't know you? And she's like, well, we need to get together. I need to know you. I'm like, okay. So we exchange phone numbers. Mm-hmm. The rest of the event happens. It's whatever. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know why I was supposed to be there. I really talked to just this one person and I don't know. So that was a Saturday. Monday, she messages me, texts me, the woman that I met. And she says, hey, so where do you live? I definitely want us to get together and just connect more. And I'm like, yeah, I live in this area, et cetera, et cetera. And she goes, no way. I'm like, yeah, where do you live? She goes, I'm 7 minutes down the street. So like, never have met her before. Never
really?
even,
how didn't you?
Right. Never met her before. Never had any interaction, no paths crossing. We meet 2 hours away from where we both live at an event that I was just like, don't be lazy, just go. Take the action, just go. So she's like, hey, let's meet up. Come to my house just down the street. Perfect. So I'm thinking also like she's going to try to sell me into this thing that she does because it's TV shows and podcasts and education and media and all these pieces. And so I'm like, I'm a good fit for that. So I'm sure she's going to try to just sell me into a group or a program. And I'm totally expecting that and being like, whatever, I'll explore it. So I go and I sit on her couch and she says, so tell me about yourself. So I tell her about my background and in operations and my background in marketing and strategy and leadership in the corporate world and the growth with the teams and all of that and international leadership. And I tell her about my business and what I'm doing there and working with entrepreneurs who want to get good at business and et cetera. And she goes, okay, I need you to be a member of my executive team. And I'm like,
wow,
what?
She felt that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One day.
Speaking of intuition, she followed hers as well.
Right.
One-time meeting, sitting on her couch for 30 minutes. And she's like, yep, I need you to be a member of my executive team. Now here's where it gets awesome. Because I've known my intuitive strengths, I was able to feel, all right, is this something that has a sense of adventure or does it have a sense of dread and doubt? Mm-hmm. And you would think that it would be that doubt and dread because like, here's this totally strange woman who's invited me into her home, has had a grand total of talking with me for maybe, like we met one time and now we've been talking for 30 minutes. So let's say total, we've talked for 40 minutes. And here she is being like, you need to be on my executive team. Everything in my like analytical brain is like, I don't know about this. But my intuition is coming through being like, ooh, sense of adventure. Like this is going to be amazing. And so I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's see what this looks like. So we start talking contracts and whatnot. And I negotiate for a percentage in the company plus a contracted salary, meaning that I'm working for and with that company, but it's through my business and it's part-time. I'm still doing all the things that I told her I was doing. So it's a win-win all the way around. So I start working with her 14 days from when I had that initial, I'm thinking nothing of it. Great opportunity. I'm going to love this. I have that sense of adventure, so it feels right. I'm now getting money consistently coming in through my business in a different way. I'm helping grow. It's international. It's all these things that I love that are really a good fit for me and my business. So day one, she's like, okay, so I need you to know that a key part of your role, P.S., I was brought on as a fractional executive as a chief operations officer. So operations. She goes, as operations, as COO, you are going to be responsible for connecting with our mergers and acquisitions broker. We've already hired someone and we're looking to sell the company in 3 to 5 years. Okay, great. So we make the connections with them and they're talking. They're like, yep, we believe very strongly, and we've done this before. We believe very strongly based on this business model and how it is that in the next 3 to 5 years, we could sell this company for $1 billion or better.
Oh my
Great.
God.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm like, awesome. Like, let's get to, and I'm in work mode, right? So I'm like, let's just get in it. Let's start getting things prepped and ready to go. Operationally, we need to get us to the point where we can sustain being sold for that much. So my brain's in that mode. I come home and I go, wait a minute. I negotiated for equity ownership in this company. So I go pull out my contract and I'm like, how much percentage did I get? Because that wasn't the important part for me. The important part was the sense of adventure, being a part of this big company, getting to help it grow, now finding this out, right? Like it was very much aligned. So I wasn't doing it for the money per se or the ownership. So I go and I look at my contract and I've negotiated for 1% ownership in this company. Well, for any of our math girly or non-math girlies who haven't already done that math, because I had to count it out again, calculator, 8 figures. So 1% ownership of a $1 billion company is $10 million, which we've already established is 8 figures.
Oh my God.
So
I have chills. That is an incredible story.
And it's so crazy because here's the thing I love to always call out with this is first off, I had the thought and instead of dismissing it was like, let's ride the wave. Let's see. Part of not dismissing it was not asking how. So like step 1, forego the expectations. Step 2, I created a custom declaration and said that over and over and over again to the point of annoying. Step 3 was not lazy. An opportunity came to go to this thing that I was like, I don't know if I really want to go. And I was like, just go, don't be lazy. So I took action, met this person. Continued to follow through even though I was like, oh yeah, she's 7 minutes down the street. I think she's going to try to sell me, but let's go and see the opportunity anyways. Okay, so again, not being lazy, taking action. And then 4 is really leaning into my intuition of, is this an aligned thing? And because of that, and I mentioned there's a few other things that I did, and I have a free email series that's me talking on video, sharing the other 4 things I did. So 8 crazy things for 8 crazy actions. That said, when it came down to it, there is no way that if I was thinking 8-figure entrepreneur, there's no way that I ever in a million years could have said, oh yeah, I'm gonna meet this person and then they're gonna give me an opportunity to work for and have ownership in their company and they're gonna sell for this much. There's no way you could have mapped that out. So it literally was a drop out of the air into my lap of like, you wanted an 8-figure opportunity, here it is, which is just crazy to me. But also it really shows the power of trusting your intuition and doing what makes sense for you and knowing that, quite frankly, the universe has your back if you're willing to forego the expectations, say the declarations, not be lazy, and trust your intuition.
Forget the how. So many of us get caught up in the how. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I always say it's none of my business how. It's none of my business. I don't need to know how.
Well, and again, if I had tried to figure out how that would happen, it would have limited me. It would have blocked me. It would have felt like, okay, I've got to sell how much at what price range? It would have totally just shook me up and taken me down as opposed to, we'll see how it goes. And now here's this big opportunity and it's this amazing thing. Now, I will say, because in the effort of transparency, it's an opportunity. The company has not sold for that much yet, to be very clear. But 8-figure opportunity, I have ownership in it. And our M&A broker, who's an expert in this, is like, yeah, $1 billion should be no problem. So it's like, cool. Now I get to reap the rewards of the work that I've done. When the timing is right, trusting in that timing piece from intuition as well.
Yeah.
Additionally, so I worked as the COO with that organization for a year. Then it no longer felt aligned, not for any reason other than it was just time. And so now I still have my ownership. I'm on the board of directors. I'm very proud of all the work that I did. Plus I get to see all the continuation work of it. And so it's one of the businesses I'm an owner in for directors, but it is not my day to day. And so there's even that too, where it's like opportunities don't necessarily mean you've got to bust your butt for the next 5 years to make this happen. It's already there and in place. I've put in the work and now I'm just waiting for the rewards to drop whenever the timing feels right. And I'm still following my intuition in my business going forward after that.
Yeah. And it could be more than 8 figures. Who knows how much it will sell for?
Absolutely. Which would be amazing.
You might have to change your whole branding to 9 figures.
Absolutely.
As you were going through this story, my brain kind of triggers what is masculine and what is feminine, because I think I'm sort of an expert in my own life of balancing my masculine and feminine energies. So you're going through the story and I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of masculine. So does this. And I'm like, oh, I wonder like how we're going to turn it into feminine. But it was such a testament to the fact that you need both. You know, you can do the work in your masculine. You could go to the event and be on and social in your masculine. you could pace back and forth and say your declaration, and that's masculine. But the feminine part comes with the trust, comes with the listening to your intuition, comes with the not knowing how and just having that like faith in yourself. And I think, yeah, such a beautiful testament to how you need to have both and how you need to have that balance.
I would also add to that like with the pacing, I'm outdoors, I'm outside. And here's the thing that I interpret feminine as, which is creation energy. So while I'm pacing and I'm saying the same thing over and over again, I'm literally making momentum and creation energy in that space. And so I would add to that as well. It's not a either or, and it's definitely not a, this is the time for this and this is the time for this. I actually think that they both can be, and I'm just reiterating exactly what you just said. I think that they both can be happening simultaneously.
Yes.
And that is where the real balance comes in.
Yeah. And that's where the magic happens. Like I know I've definitely got caught up too much in my feminine energy or too much in my masculine. And then, you know, things that are supposed to happen don't end up happening. Yeah, they do need to happen simultaneously, which I think is something that a lot of people get wrong nowadays. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I just want a soft feminine life. And I'm like, okay. You don't know what you want.
Well, and I think the thing is too, is I see a lot of business owners that are like, oh, I don't want to be too much in my masculine. And oftentimes that's because they've been burned in more of the corporate setting in those types of spaces. But the truth of it is that you have to have that balance, because if you're all feminine, in my opinion, if you're all feminine, the momentum doesn't stay. There isn't momentum. You're constantly in creation mode, which constantly can feel like you're starting over, which can feel like you're on the roller coaster of revenue for your business. You have to have that masculine structure to support and maintain that foundation to give you the stability to create at those next levels, and then to level up again, create at those next levels, level up again. And each level up has to have the foundation built, and the foundation is the masculine supporting the creativity of the feminine. Without them, you're either all structure and feeling like you're just drudgery day in and day out through your business because there's nothing creative and fun happening, nothing aligned happening. On the other side, you're constantly in creation mode, feeling like you have a roller coaster of revenue and you don't know what to do because there's no scalability, there's no foundational, no operational structure. And that's what I love. Right. I'm going to go back to the iMove here for a second. That's what I love about iMove, because the intuition is the feminine, the marketing is a combination of both, the operations is the masculine, the velocity is the feminine, and the execution is both. And so we've got a really good dichotomy between what that looks like to cause that balance in your business, which is also why I believe that it is, when you get good at business in those areas, everything else starts to fall into place, because now the structure is there and the creativity is there to exponentially grow what you're trying to build.
Yeah, everything works in synergy with each other. I love that. Oh, I'm so excited. So my last kind of question for you today before we wrap up, I think that there's a lot of comparison online. Like we had just mentioned, 7 figures using ChatGPT prompt, people can kind of get wrapped up in comparison mode. I want to know, how do you stay in this like abundance mindset? Or do you have any advice for people who are maybe in a lack or poverty mindset?
I think one of the biggest pieces of that, like I mentioned at the beginning, when I thought other people had this super secret power that I didn't have called intuition, I was pissed. I can't even describe how frustrated I was, because it was like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I feel like I am a very smart individual. I am taking action. I'm doing all of these things. And here's somebody else that's like, and I'll say it, that my brain, where I was at, I was like, there's somebody else who I am smarter than, I am more talented than, and they are more successful than me, and they attribute it to their intuition. And I feel like I don't have that. So I was so mad. And the harder I tried and pushed, the more angry I would get.
Rightfully so.
Well, and I think that that's something, especially as women entrepreneurs, we don't talk about enough, right? Even me saying it out loud now, I'm like, oh, somebody's going to be like, ooh, she's aggressive. And I'm like, well, the truth of it is, I saw somebody and went, I think I'm smarter. I think I'm more talented. There's no reason why I should not be equaling that same level of success.
Right.
And that's no shame or putting down that other person. They're doing their thing and they're wonderful and amazing. But I'm looking at it in a comparison standpoint, being like, what the hell? And that's where I'm going to get to. And I think one of the things that we need to do is not compare and run our own race. Once I figured out that my intuition was different than what those people had, but it was still mine and it's still intuitive, that allowed me to really tap into, who am I and what am I doing? What is my business? And that has allowed me to be able to say, you know what? That coach just said that. And while I think that could work for somebody else, it's not aligned for me. I don't have that sense of adventure. I don't have I didn't hear the angels sing or, whatever it is for other people's intuition. For me, it's that sense of adventure. And I'm like, I don't feel that. I can see the value of it. I can see how it could work for other business models. But for me, this is that's no longer a thing. How does it feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, it feels like a 4. Chuck it. Not time for that in my business. And even just by understanding my intuition, now I'm coming into I've come into my own and like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And I don't need to worry about what other people have going on. And I'm not looking at it from the space of, I'm smarter, I'm more talented. I look at it from the space of, awesome, they're doing their thing. And there's a million ways to make $1 million. I'm doing it my way and I get to test that out and play in that space. But it all really does come back to when you can tap into and connect with your intuition, suddenly all the things and all the shiny objects and all the stuff everybody else is doing doesn't matter anymore. It has no relevancy. And if you see something somebody else is doing, you're like, that's really cool. Scale of 1 to 10. How would it feel if I had that? Oh, that's a 10. All right. Now I can look at that and go, that was a brilliant, inspirational, intuitional insight. Is that something I want to explore? Now I can explore it. But it's not from, oh my gosh, they're doing that and I need to do that right now. Otherwise I'm going to be left behind. Right? And I'll say this too. If your intuition comes in that little inner voice, there's a difference between exactly like, think about the tone. Those of you listening, rewind it 30 seconds and you'll hear the difference here. When I said, okay, is that something I want to do? Scale of 1 to 10. Notice the cadence is calm instead of the second cadence, which was very fast and paced and okay, I got to do this and anxious and aggressive. And they're getting this before me. I got to do this. Otherwise I'm going to be left behind. The tonality, that cadence, that fluctuation in your inner voice is also an insight into intuition. If it's this fast, and I'm a fast-paced speaker, right? But if it's fast and aggressive and sarcastic and bitty and like comparison, like competitive, I got to do this, chances are it's not intuitive aligned action for you. If it's like, maybe I can explore that. How would that feel? Is that something I could apply to my business? It is such a difference in mentality that allows you to then take that aligned and congruent action. So coming back full circle to your original question of like how to avoid comparison, how to stay in your lane, I'm going to say first and foremost, you got to connect into that intuitive space because that is the foundation into becoming who you fully are, which allows you to trust who you fully are, which allows you to then build a business that you can trust and it can trust you in return that then can grow and support and help the world.
Yeah. So many things were my favorite. I don't even know which one to like talk about right now. I think, it's great advice to just listen again, just hear it over again because there's so many ideas that flood our brain through all moments of the day. And we don't know necessarily, unless we have a trained brain, which are our intuition and which are our ego or which are coming from parents and, family members and friends that have just passed along their insights and their ways of thinking. But if you really slow down the thoughts in your own brain and you're able to like cherry pick which ones are your intuition, then you'll have no problem following it and trusting it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Is there anything that you like to do for your mindset? I know that you mentioned that 8-figure business opportunity. You were kind of pacing back and forth. And I think that mindset is a really big part of this manifestation process. I know that you said it's like not one size fits all, but is there anything that you like to do that maybe we can take with us to just maybe help better if there's not business owners listening to this, or if there are people that want to improve their mindset? Is there anything that you would recommend?
Oh, absolutely. So things I do in my morning routine is very first thing is I like to journal, and I journal in the morning. So for years, I thought I had a journal at the end of the day and resuscitate what happened in the day in my journal. And I would find that I was exhausted by the time that happened. So I said I would do it tomorrow. And then 6 months later of no journal writing, right? I would just be like, okay, this is not working. So finally I realized journaling in the morning is much better for me. Okay. So I wake up and I journal in the morning. In that journal, I just talk like I'm talking to a friend and I just share everything that's going on or what I'm worried about or anything like that. Where the real money comes in is I also in the morning, so in my journal, in the same journal, I'll write my journal of what's happening or what I have planned for the day, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, etc. I'll wrap that up and then I will write a letter. And in my case, I switch it up. So sometimes it's a letter to God, sometimes it's a letter to the universe, sometimes it's a letter to my highest self. So it's whatever works for anybody. For me, I totally rotate it, whatever I'm feeling that day. But I write a letter to, let's just say it's the universe. I write a letter to the universe and I say, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I want help with. Why I ask questions. Why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? I ask for help. I've also gotten to the point lately where I'm like, I want this to happen. Make it so. Because I also believe that as individuals, we are gods and universes in our own right. And if I actually believe that, and I believe in universal like attraction and manifestation, then there's no reason why I can't command the universe, because I am the universe, if that makes sense. That's going to take us on a whole different rabbit hole and deep path here, but that's just
People love that shit here.
That is my own belief. So I write that letter to God, and it's anything and everything in between. No holding back. So there are times where I'm like, and again, I hope it's okay that I swear on the show, but there's no holding back. So sometimes I'm like, what the fuck, God? Why? Why did this happen when I specifically did not want that to happen? Okay, but here's where it becomes a really cool exercise. And I write that letter. So it's dear God, dear universe, no holes barred. Like, here's what's happening. Here's what I want. Here's what I'm commanding, demanding. Here's my questions, whatever it is. And I do this every day. So it's not like I'm trying to get all this in one magical letter, but that morning, whatever it is. Then I write, love Taylor. Then I do, dear Taylor, and I will free write anything that comes to my mind. And it is crazy, the pieces of my life that have come together because I feel like I have a two-way communication. I grew up in a religious setting where it was pray and that was it. Right. And in writing the letters, I feel like I'm able to pray and actually receive communication back, which is great. But I mean, it's been fascinating. A couple of years ago, I was doing this, and I've been doing it for a while. I was doing this, and my husband and I had put down a down payment deposit reservation on a property. So we were going to build a house, and they were running all the tests and stuff to finalize and move forward. And I wrote the letter to God, and I said, please help me know, like, is this the property? Is this where we need to be? Is this what's happening? And that it's the right move for us. And the answer I got back was, you need to talk to your neighbors. I'm like, okay. So my husband and I drive up there to see it in the daylight again and all this stuff. And it's a vast property, like 5 acres. And so there's no neighbors to either side. But there is a little like sheep herder trailer on the property right next to ours. Like, you can see it from where you would walk up to the property that we are now in contract with. So we're driving around. We check out the rest of the neighborhood. Everybody's got huge properties. So we're just kind of driving around and seeing, getting a feel for the space. And we drive back down, and we come back past our property again. And we see that there's 2 people coming out of the sheep herder trailer. And so I said to my husband, because I'm antisocial actually, and so I was like, go talk to them. I need you to go talk to the neighbors. And he was like, okay. So he gets out, and he's very friendly and just amazing. And so he's like, yeah, hey, and it's a long walk from our property to their side. And so he's like, hey, how's it going? And he like walks up, and now I'm not seeing any of this because they're past the tree line and I'm just waiting in the car. And he comes back and he goes, we're not moving here. We're not living here. And I'm like, what? And he goes, he's like, that was the shadiest thing I've ever experienced. He's like, I walked up and I was super friendly. I said, hi. And the woman was like, hi. And the guy was like, get in the truck. Like, we're not talking to him, and like shoved her in the truck. And I'm like, that sounds like an abusive situation. Like, is she kidnapped or something? Like, I don't know. But like, all just total. And my husband's not into energy work or anything like that. And he was like, that was totally bad energy. We are not going to live next to that. And I was like, okay. So we backed out of it, and everything has worked out great. But it was fascinating because the answer wasn't yes or no. The answer was go talk to the neighbors. And if I had talked to the neighbors, I'd probably been like, I don't know. But I happened to send my husband, who was like, hell no, we're not doing this. And it solidified it for us. It was like, this is not the place. And so it was just such a fascinating exercise in testing that out and then actually having it work. But that's one of the things that I do every day, is I get that guidance and that back and forth communication through those letters. The other thing I do every day is I do a belief breakthrough. And so I ask myself, what's the number one belief holding me back today? And I uncover that. I look at the memories around that. I look at how I'm holding on to this belief and how it's hurting or harming me, because it's the belief that's holding me back, right? And then I decide if I want to change it or not, if I want to rewrite the memory that's attached to that. And then I take an action within 24 hours to lock in the new belief. And that has exponentially increased my ability for abundance, my ability for opportunities, and for all of those pieces. So it's kind of a 3-in-1, because it's all in one journal. It's all done in the morning, but I journal, I write a letter to universe, God, higher power, and they write it back. And I do a belief breakthrough, all in the same journal, same sitting. And it has revolutionized my life.
Wow. You probably go through a lot of journals.
I do.
But that's beautiful.
I was going to say, as a quick side note, for years, I was like, I have to have a separate journal for my letters, and I have to have a separate journal for my belief breakthrough, so I can come back and just see them all in one. And then what would happen is I would need one of the journals and it'd be somewhere else, or I'd be out and about and wouldn't have something with me. And then I had notes on my phone. It was just all these desperate locations. And so finally I was like, screw it. It may not be the most organized way, but I am just going to have one journal for everything. So I use that journal for going to conferences and taking notes, like all of it. And it's just revolutionized my mental space as well to be like, yep, I have one journal that I put everything in instead of 5 because I love blank notebooks.
Yeah, I might have to try that because currently I do like you said, and I have a bunch of different ones. And this one's for manifestations, and this one's for shadow work, and this one's my daily journal. Yeah, and it does kind of become a pain in the ass to like find them all. And then if I want to go like journal at the beach or at the pool or a coffee shop, I have to take all 5 of them with me.
And here's the thing that I love about this too, as like a intuitive hit for a minute, is you are one being in one body. And when you try to compartmentalize the shadow work, the journaling, the manifestation, and all of those things, you're trying to fracture how you approach life. And so even the simplicity of maybe putting it in one journal allows for an acceptance of who you are as a singular human being and all the amazing things that you're building or releasing. Versus, I gotta put this hat on and this journal and do it this way. Like, it allows you to have that freedom and flexibility of being you in a whole different way. Like, organizationally wise, it's such a weird operational play, but putting it in one spot, I believe can help you being you and listeners, and has helped me really own who you are in your entirety.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to try that.
Nice.
Go out and buy a journal. Excuse to buy a new journal now.
The one journal to rule them all.
Yeah, I'll try it, of course. And I love that in your letters from the universe to you, you said it doesn't say yes or no. And I feel like that hits for me because it's like, if it said yes, move into this house, or it said no, don't move into this house, you might start second guessing yourself. Mm-hmm. Instead, you're not getting those concrete answers, and you're actually taking action and figuring out, your own life path. And I think that that's so important. And I think it's also important in like cultivating your intuition, because it's like, we all second guess ourselves sometimes, and yeah, if you're not getting a concrete answer and you have to go out there and commit action and do the work, whatever work it is, work of going to talk to these people, and then your answer is solidified.
100%. And by journaling it, you now have proof. So that happened a year, 2 years ago. True. And I could be like, well, I haven't gotten any answers since. I have, but I can always go back and be like, oh, this happened. I mean, even this morning, I was asking for help on something, and the response was, I make homemade popcorn. So not microwave popcorn, like it's the seeds, putting in, the kernels, and I put them in the oil and all that stuff. And I was like, I really want to do these 4 things. Like, what is it that I need to do to help me get these 4 things to happen? And the response back was very simple. And it was, stop eating the popcorn and ban TV. And I'm like, okay, all right. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, how important is this to me? Do I want to stop eating the popcorn, and do I want to ban the TV to get this to where I want to go? And now I can test it out. But because I've had that backlog of trusting it, when that's the answer I get, I'm like, great, we're banning TV and I'm not eating popcorn anymore. And not that those are bad.
Probably not an answer that you would have come up with.
Absolutely not. And I mean, I've done it before too, where I've been like, okay, what is the number one thing? What's the action I need to do to solidify this new belief and the belief breakthrough? And one of them was throw away a plant. And it was a plant that I had been worried about. I have a lot of houseplants. And so it was a plant that I had been worried about because it was kind of it was stopping and starting. Like, it would be really good, and then out of nowhere it would just be crap, and I'd have to save it again. And so it just stops, it fits and starts. And I had been worried about it, and I didn't realize how worried about it I'd been. And then it was like, what action do I need to do to solidify this new belief in my belief breakthrough? And it was throw away the plant. And I'm like, what? Okay, trust it. It's not that important. It's not like it's a plant. I have several plants that have been handed down by my husband's grandmother and are like hundreds of years old. And so I'm like, I can't throw those away. But this one, absolutely, it could go in the trash. I got it from Lowe's, like no big deal. And so I threw it away, and I can't even tell you like how much opened up mentally, emotionally, energetically, universally, because I took action on that really weird, like, throw away a plant. Okay, talk to the neighbors, ban TV. Like, it's so crazy what happens. And I love that you would ask, hey, Taylor, like, what do you do? And I know that you said it's different for everybody. But part of like doing these activities, these exercises, is you figure out what it is for you. And you may not get throw away the plant or talk to the neighbors or ban TV, but you may get go hug a tree. You may get go take a nap. Like, you never know how it could play out, but that's what makes it beautiful for every person individually.
Yeah. And that's what makes this podcast so interesting, is that I get to hear everyone's different versions of it. We do, not me. We. Taylor, we're nearing the end of today's episode. I like to end every episode with a quote. You put one on your form. I don't know if you remember it or...
You're probably going to have to read it to me. I don't know if I remember it.
It was easy. It was the Nike, just do it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. My first thought was that. It's interesting because I have been asked a lot lately, like, hey, what's a quote you live by? And as much as I initially think to myself, oh, I'd love to have this really big, inspiring quote that just hits at the heart of everything. And I'm like, I don't have the time to find that. And I certainly don't want to be the person who's like trying to find the perfect quote instead of the quote I actually live by. And so the truth of it is like, as simple as it is, and the fact that it's a global corporation and not some like renowned philosopher, but it's just do it. Like, here's the thing to really break that quote down. It can be for so many different areas. And I work a lot with business owners, entrepreneurs, and I am one myself. And the biggest and best thing that I can see to do is take action. Execution, the E of iMove, is your greatest superpower. And in fact, it is your only superpower. Because everybody has intuition. We've resolved that. And whether you're good at marketing, operations, velocity, like all those pieces, those are all those levers that you can play with, you can learn, you can get into the space of. But ultimately, you could be the smartest, you could be the funniest, you could be the most talented. If you do not take action, you don't have anything, right? So taking action, executing, doing all these things, paying attention, executing on doing the activities and exercises to connect to your intuition, executing on taking action on what you intuitively knew, taking action in your marketing, building the operations, adding strategies that give velocity without burnout. Like all of those things rely on your ability to execute, which is the Nike quote, just do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that quote more. And I love that you picked it actually, because when I had thrown the podcast launch party, we had done a panel with 3 business owners, and they're all women. And we were having a conversation back and forth. And it seemed like every 5 minutes when the conversation would kind of plateau or we would move on to the next question or whatever, the end of the last sentence was always just do it. And that was like the big takeaway from this podcast, like live recording, was like, just do it. Just do it. And it's so much easier said than done. But like you said, like that is the superpower, because they're all just ideas living in your brain if you don't actually take initiative and take action on it. So I'm a big fan of that one, even though it's simple and Nike owns it. Please don't sue.
Yes. Please don't sue. We gave you full credit, Nike. So
yeah. Taylor, if people are interested in finding more about you, where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, so I would love to offer up a couple of options. First is I had mentioned that I have an email series that actually goes into detail and reiterates what the story from today about the 8-figure opportunity. And so I have an email series completely free. It's a video email series, so you can hop on, hit play, and the longest video I think is 7 minutes. So who doesn't have 5 minutes a day to manifest more in your business? And so I would love to invite those listening to check that out. It is at go.taylorproctor.com/8-crazy-actions or crazy-actions2, which is not the best URL. I'll be full admission there. But if you go to go.taylorproctor.com/8-crazy-actions2, you can sign up for that email series and get access to the 8 crazy things that I did to generate that 8-figure business opportunity. We only discussed 4 here today. That said, other ways you can get a hold of me is there's a common theme in everything that I do, and it's get good at business. So I have my own podcast, Get Good at Business. That's the Big Girl podcast. So you can check that out for free. I do have a Facebook group, big surprise here, also called Get Good at Business, where we do interviews and chat with other business owners. And so you can get a lot of value out of participating in and even being interviewed in that group. And then third, and kind of the umbrella of it all, is of course you can find out more about me and all those other opportunities, as well as ways to connect at my website, which is, no surprise here, getgoodatbusiness.com.
Beautiful, streamlined, very easy. And your SEO must be amazing.
It's actually relatively new. I have a whole story about intuition and finding my business tagline as well, but maybe that's for another day.
Yeah, come back on the show anytime, Taylor. Well, we're at the end of today's episode, so thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. If you guys are interested, I will put the link, all of Taylor's links that she has just shared with us, in the description. So if you haven't listened to the end of this episode, you'll find it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Taylor. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. This is the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm Rachel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.